other news, Treasurer Jim Chalmers will shortly announce the Reserve Bank's new rate-setting board. Let's go live to political editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew, good morning. There is a dispute about the appointments, though.
Yeah, very interesting. About 11 o'clock this morning, the Treasurer will get up, Holly, and he will announce this new so-called rate-setting board of the Reserve Bank. Under the Reserve Bank reforms passed by the government and the Greens and crossbench late in the year, there will now be two boards of the Reserve Bank, one to run the joint, the Governance Committee, and the rate-setting board. Will this have an effect on our interest rate settings? Will we get a cut out of this? Well, the opposition is suspicious. This is about getting the government a good outcome, perhaps, in terms of the odd rate cut. The government insists not. They say the board won't be in place until March 1, which means its first meeting in terms of setting rates will be April, still within an election campaign window, but they won't be there for that crucial early February meeting. And I can tell you that on the Monetary Policy Board will be Michele Bullock, obviously the Governor, Andrew Hauser, the Deputy, Stephen Kennedy, the Treasury Secretary, so a bit of a government voice there, 4 existing from the Governance Board and two new appointments. And it's been speculated this morning it's Renee McKibben, should I say, one of the architects of these reforms. Here was the Treasurer talking about it yesterday and the Shadow Treasurer complaining they haven't gone with what the opposition wanted, which is the full Governance Board move to the rate-setting boards. They are saying, therefore, it is a political set of appointments.
And what people will see when we announce these new board members this week, ideally tomorrow actually, but certainly in the next couple of days, they'll see that they are first-rate, first-class appointments. We've given the opposition the opportunity to suggest names. We've given them an opportunity 5 months apart to respond to the people that we are proposing. I had a conversation with Angus Taylor on Friday about this, but this wasn't the first conversation that we'd had. We had a conversation back in July, and those two conversations 5 months apart were consistent.
It's disappointing that every time I have a conversation with the Treasurer, he telegraphs it. But our position on the Reserve Bank Board has been clear all along. We want to see the existing board transition to the new board. We've said we'd work with the Labor Party, but we don't support sack and stack. They decided they wanted to stand at a drafting gate and decide who went to which board. We don't agree with that. We've been clear about that all along. Our position won't change.
Now, Andrew, Treasurer Jim Chalmers has also hailed the election as a referendum on the introduction of nuclear power in Australia.
Yes, and that'll be very interesting indeed, because the suggestion that we have nuclear power in Australia has been going better in the polls in the recent last year or two. So there's a bit more community feeling perhaps we should give this a go, and Peter Dutton's playing on that. It is therefore the task of the government, if they are to make this a referendum on nuclear power, to point out the so-called holes they see in the plan. They see it as an underestimate on cost, and underestimate the opposition's modelling in terms of how much energy Australia requires, way down on what it should be. A $4 trillion shrinkage of the economy, Jim Chalmers said yesterday. And the other big problem with it is the federal government is going, under the Peter Dutton plan, would own and build these plants, whereas a lot of the renewable energy sector is private sector investment. That's the difference. So you talk about figures. Now, the opposition says, well, the government's underwriting the private sector on a lot of those projects anyway. It is a heck of a debate to have in this election campaign. I asked the Treasurer if it was a referendum on nuclear power. He said yes. Let's play that and the Shadow Treasurer's response yesterday.
So this will be one of the choices that people face when they go into the ballot box next year, between Labor's plan for a future powered by renewables and firmed by gas, relying on storage and hydro, versus this economic insanity and slapstick comedy with serious consequences for upward pressure on bills, which has been presented by Peter Dutton and Angus Taylor.
I won't take lectures on the economy from the Labor Party, but I'll tell you what, one of the ways we know you strengthen the economy is to ensure that the electricity costs in the economy are lower than they otherwise would have been. And that's what this plan does. It's a broad range of technologies in the plan. It's a balance. You know, the one person who isn't balanced on energy is Chris Bowen.
And the Treasurer hands down his economic mid-year statement on Wednesday. Talk us through it. What can we expect?
Well, we can expect a bigger set of deficits, but he says some deficits will be lower than the forecast in the budget, others larger. Put to him the direct question over 4 years, are they going to be bigger in total? I think he practically confirms it here. This has been leading to the speculation the government might go to an April election and avoid a budget. That would be a tough political decision too. I'm not convinced they'll do that. But the argument is we're going to see a sea of red ink. And on Wednesday in the MyEFO statement, I think Treasurer Jim Chalmers will be confirming that. You had deficits predicted in your budget of $28.3 billion, growing to $42.8 billion in 25-26, which would be about the sixth largest on record, then 26.7, then $24 billion. Is the totality of those deficits that you're going to forecast on Wednesday bigger than the totality of those four forecast in the budget?
Oh, you have to wait and see the numbers on Wednesday, Andrew. We've been upfront and said that because of some of these pressures, well, you have to see on Wednesday. You'll see all the numbers on Wednesday. There hasn't been slippage in every year. We've been able to do a little bit better in the near term, but there's been some slippage for reasons that we've been upfront about. But the overall story since we came to office, two surpluses, a huge turnaround in the budget situation that we inherited, much less debt, much less interest on the debt, will show that we've made really very, very substantial progress since we came to office.